Then it's true, the story.
Oh, yes. Now then, what is that phrase you use? Once upon a time.
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to Every Version Ever. Today I'm joined by Trivial Theater and we are talking about one of my absolute favorite versions of Cinderella of all time, Ever After. Ever After was one of the definitive Cinderella versions for me growing up. I didn't see the Disney version that many times. I think the main one I watched as a kid was the Brandy version of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Obviously that's still a favorite as well. I covered that one a year or two ago with Lisa. But at some point in my early teens I saw Ever After and it instantly became my favorite Cinderella. The characters, the grounded nature of the story, the real world setting that wasn't magical but still had a touch of magic about it, and one of the truly most despicable takes on the Wicked Stepmother I've ever seen. I love everything about this movie, and I have so been looking forward to talking about it. So, I don't know about you, but I think this, for me, is like the best Cinderella. Like, I remember watching the Disney version growing up, but not a lot. I think I watched this one a lot more after I think I saw it when I was probably like 13, and then it became the Cinderella for me.
I could 100% see that. This was the first Cinderella that I saw that felt grounded, I guess, if that makes sense. Because I grew up on the Disney Cinderella, and there might have been one or two others, but like it was mainly the Disney Cinderella. So to see this version really gave you some, not that it's true to life, but the fact that they do bring in Grimm's fairy tales, the fact that, you know, you hear about it from the perspective of like her great great granddaughter or whatever it is. I don't know. And Drew Barrymore just rocks in this, and it's just got a lot of stuff that makes it endearing and powerful. Not powerful is not the right word, but like it shows you that she wasn't just a damsel in distress. She was able to do more than just what, you know, became her watered down story over the course of time.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore is great. I know a lot of people have things to say about her accent, but I think I feel the same way about her accent as I do Dick Van Dyke's in Mary Poppins. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
care.
No, I would agree. Well, the thing is, like in the 90s, that's just like Kevin Costner as Robin Hood. That's just kind of what they did. I mean, or Keanu Reeves in Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's kind of just the way, and not to say that it's right or wrong, but that's just kind of what they did at the time. It wasn't about the accent, because it really should have been French. It shouldn't have even been British.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about that.
Then like Angelica Houston didn't even have an accent. The one what was the one sister? Not Marguerite, Jacqueline. She didn't have an accent at all. I mean, or maybe she did. Did she? Anyway.
I can't remember. It's been a couple weeks since I watched it and made my notes now, so
Yeah. I would say if there's one accent that deserves some critique, it's Marguerite when she's throwing a tantrum. But I want it now, mother. She's like Veruca Salt if Veruca Salt was like a stepsister in the 16th century.
yeah, kinda.
I used to quote this all the time just randomly, but I haven't done that in, you know, quite a long time just because, you know, you don't watch it and it kind of falls out of mind, so.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I hadn't watched this in years before I decided to do it for the podcast.
Well, I'm glad you brought it back. It was fun revisiting.
Yeah, I'm really glad I watched it again because it reminded me. I've watched several Cinderellas recently for podcasts that I may or may not eventually do, and this is so far the best. Still, I knew it probably would be, but I haven't found one to beat it yet.
Oh, I agree. This just next level, and the emphasis changes depending on, you know, because there's like all of the different Disney live action ones, there's other variations, but this one just has that really great balance of, I don't know that it's so much for kids, just because there is some stuff that's a little bit but you know, like a teen to adult crowd. I
Hmm.
don't think there's a better set of messages unless you're talking about this one. You know,
Yeah,
it balances it keeps your interest. It's a pretty tight watch. It's interesting. It's got some great humor.
yeah,
There's tragedy, there's romance, there's, you know, the bad guys get their comeuppance at the end in a really nice way.
Yes. There were a few people in this that I had forgotten were in this. Like, I'd forgotten that Angelica Houston was in this because I don't think I would have even known who she was when I first saw this.
Oh no, understood. I mean, unless you had seen like the Addams Family, like that movie.
I had not. The only Addams Family I'd seen at the time was the cartoon that was on TV. I'd never seen the movie. I only just watched the movie for the first time a couple months ago.
Nice. Yeah, that was the thing I would have known her from when I saw it initially.
It's funny, Angelica Houston keeps coming up on different podcasts that I've been doing recently. That sometimes happens. Like, for whatever reason, I won't even plan it. I'll just keep having the same person just keep showing up. But last year, Katie and I did all the Tinkerbell films, and she was the Queen Fairy in those.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we also did Captain EO, and she's the Supreme Leader in that.
Nice. She's also in a really fun sci-fi movie called Ice Pirates.
I feel like I've heard about that one recently. Maybe you were talking about it. That was one that I was
Possibly.
thinking that I should watch.
Oh, you totally should. It's wild.
The stepsisters in here, were you familiar with them from anything? Because both of them, it was like, I felt like I knew them, but I don't know why I would have known them. And when I looked them up, the only thing that I recognized was Melanie Linsky, the good stepsister. She played the bluebird Beatrice in Over the Garden Wall, but that's a voice, so it wasn't that I recognized her face.
So I'm just looking up her filmography now. Yes, there's a couple of things that not at that point, but just generally, Heavenly Creatures from Peter Jackson, Coyote Ugly, Sweet Home Alabama, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. There's a couple of others. She's in Yellow Jackets, which is a more modern series. So yeah, I know her from a few different things. Like she's just got one of those faces that stands out. Like you just remember her, like in a good way. So I was surprised, and I'm jumping a bit, but the guy that played Monsignor Pierre Lepew, he's a guy called Richard O'Brien, and he did Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay.
Like he was the music guy behind that. He was I think the character's name was Riff Raff. He was kind of the butler for the castle. Fantastic singer.
He wasn't one that I recognized by face, but when I looked him up, I was surprised to see that he was the dad on the show Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like the opposite type of character, because the dad is like nice and supportive, and this guy is just evil.
Oh man, he plays evil so well.
He really did.
Oh man, fantastic. I did love the way that I guess his name is Patrick Godfrey played Da Vinci. That was fantastic.
Yes, he was great.
And obviously we don't I mean I'm sure that there are people that can recollect not recollect but have written down how Da Vinci was as a man, but I just love the way that he's played. He's so, despite all the talents, he's so down to earth and just it was a nice change of pace.
Yeah. And I like that they had like it's so different from other Cinderellas. Like he's the fairy godmother,
He really is, yeah.
but he's not magic. He's not a fairy or a godmother. He's just Leonardo da Vinci. And he uses his artistic inventions to help her get through things. It's such a cool twist on the story. I just really like that aspect of it.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite quotes that I'd completely forgotten about when he's getting Cinderella out of Danielle out of the dungeon. The one line he goes, "Why, that's pure genius." He goes, "Yes, I shall go down in history as a man who opened a door."
That was one of those quotes that I remembered, like as he was saying, it was like, oh, I remember this part from when I was a kid.
And he, what when he's going back and forth? No, talking to Danielle about how she doesn't feel worthy, and he goes, "Yes, and I'm the bastard son of a peasant. What does that have to do with anything?" Like he doesn't mince words. He calls out Henry when he gets to up his own butt about being a royal. You know that he's a mentor that Henry desperately needed, and I don't know like what brought it to be written into the script, but I'm so glad it's there. It grounded Henry so much. So on the subject of characters, I loved the king.
Yes, he was another one that I was like, I know him from somewhere. And then it must have just been this movie. I did see that he was also in 102 Dalmatians, but
Oh,
I think I might have only watched that a couple times, and so I don't think it was that. I think it was just I was remembering this movie.
actually, his filmography, like movie wise, really wasn't that like there wasn't that much in there. Like, not to say he wasn't in stuff. It's just it's a relatively short list.
It's been a while since I made my notes, but I think he might have been one that was more of a stage actor.
That would make sense. I mean, he did a lot of TV as well, so weirdly enough, a lot of like royal stuff. He was Henry VIII, he was Edward the 7th, he was Churchill, he was yeah, he was a lot of stuff.
I think other than Drew Barrymore, the person in this that I was the most familiar with, that I didn't realize it until I looked him up and I was like, oh yeah, that's who that is, was the guy that played the servant. Walter Sparrow played Maurice.
Oh yeah.
He
Yep.
was Ben Weatherstaff in the 1993 Secret Garden.
Oh, that's cool.
And I watched that a lot as a kid. Other than him, the only other person that I felt like I was super familiar with, but it was one that I knew that I was familiar with, was Toby Jones as the royal page, who's kind of like the toady that's delivering news to the
Oh, yep.
stepmother.
Yep.
Because like I've gotten to know him in other things because like he was in an episode of Doctor Who as the Dream Lord. He was in the
Oh
Captain
yeah.
America movies. He was Claudius Templesmith in the Hunger Games movies. He was also the bad guy in the worst Jurassic Park movie,
The
Jurassic
worst
World
one.
Fallen Kingdom.
The worst one yet. We don't there might be more. Actually, there's another one coming out, so
But like I say that I knew him from this movie because literally every time I see him in something, my mind goes, that's the guy who was caught peeing on the wall in Ever After.
that was pretty funny. Yeah.
Like that scene for whatever reason is like burned into my mind from when I was a kid. Like that's who he is.
I've seen him in stuff, but he's not someone that like you automatically like connect between things. I
Oh,
would
he is
not.
for me because he was the guy peeing on the wall in
Well,
Ever
oh no,
After.
absolutely. Don't blame you there. I mean, that's something, especially when you're
Literally
watching
every
as a
time I
kid.
see him, that's the scene that comes into my mind. I'm like, that's the guy.
Yeah, you go up, you run into him randomly on the street someday, and you can be like, "Hey, you're that guy, the guy that peed on the wall."
I think it was a combination of the fact that it was just a guy peeing on a wall, and I don't think I'd seen something like that happen in a movie before. But also, when that is happening, her friend above him with the pot and going whoo, and then dropping it on his head. I think my brothers and I quoted the whoo because I feel like I can remember my brothers doing that noise, pretending to drop the pot.
Love it. I love this on the locations that they used. Obviously, it was filmed in France by and large, it looks like. And I just adore the set design. Like the
Mhm.
castles that they chose were amazing. The chateaus were fantastic. The interiors were awesome. It was a pretty movie.
Yes. It's one of those movies that when you watch it, you just wish that more movies were made like this today.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's not even that there's obviously a lot of movies that are shot on site.
Hmm.
That sounds they're filmed on site. They're not shot on site. Oh man.
I
But
know
there's
what you
just
meant.
yeah, thank God. But there's just something about I don't know, there's just a richness to this. And I don't know how else it's not like it was shot in 4K or anything like that, but it's just pretty.
Yeah,
Like time was taken and I don't know, they schlepped their bags a long way to get some pretty great shots.
they definitely did. I should have looked it up, but the castle that they lived in was, I'm assuming that was a real place.
They don't say specifically like one over the other. There's the Chateau de Hautefort in the Dordogne region of France. Other featured chateaus are de Felion de Losse. I'm sorry, I'm absolutely slaughtering these French viewers. I am so sorry. Uh, de la Canesse and de Bagnac, and then the Chateau de la Russie. Oh, okay. So Chateau de la Rose served as the house of the de Barbaracs.
That's the one I really liked. I mean, they were all great, but like the one that her family actually lived in was my favorite.
Yeah.
It just looks like such a cool old house.
Yeah, very much. It's one thing when you're talking, and I guess anywhere in Europe, really, but you're never lacking for just incredible castles and chateaus and manor houses and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
I also really enjoyed the inclusion of the Brothers Grimm.
Yeah, that was, I had not remembered that they were in that. So when it started in, I mean, not the future times, but like, I mean, it's the past us, but it's the wrong time for Cinderella. It's like, okay, I don't remember this at all. I had completely forgotten the Brothers Grimm were in this, and I'd completely forgotten that her, I guess, great granddaughter, I don't remember for sure, like a granddaughter of some amount of greatness
Yes.
was at
At
the
least
beginning.
3 grades.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten about that. But it was an interesting way to bookend the movie, having her wanting to tell them the real story and being disappointed by their version.
I was gonna say their version. I read it to prepare for this, and my goodness, it was.
Yeah, their stories are dark.
They are. I mean, not to spoil a 16th whatever like a 16th century story, but to be able to fit into the shoes, one sister cut off her big toe, and the other one cut off the back of her heel. So, ouch.
And then they got their eyes pecked out by birds.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the normal way to deal with, evil stepmother or stepsisters. The stepmother didn't get any comeuppance though.
I, well, it's, I guess depending on the version, I'm not sure if it was in the version. I guess it probably isn't because if you don't remember it and I don't remember it from my copy of Grimm's, but it's funny. I recently did. It'll probably come out before this one. A version like the first version ever made, the animated version by Lottie Reiniger. The stepmother kind of explodes in half.
Oh,
It's
ouch.
so bizarre. Like, it's like, where did this come from?
Ouch.
Maybe Lottie Reiniger was like, I need the stepmother to suffer a fate worse than her daughters. She kind of just disappeared in the Grimms. Let's explode her.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do something like that, I guess that's the best way to do it. You know what? Just we don't want to deal with her anymore. We're just gonna blow her up. I'm just thinking about that in the thing that you showed me where it was like paper stop motion.
Yeah,
How
that's the
how
one.
would you just the cathartic actions of ripping like a character you don't like in half. Like, die, evil stepmother, die!
Well, I guess we can get into the main story. I really liked the scenes of her as a kid with her and her friend, Gustav.
Yeah.
Their dialogue, I had to write this part down. You look like a girl. That's what I am, half-wit. But today you look it. Boy or girl, I could still whip you. And I was thinking to myself, this is like peak 90s feminism.
Oh, it 100% is. And the way that it's called back to, she's taught to read into fence, because there wasn't a woman figure in her life. It was
Uh-huh.
just her dad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't think that the scenes would be written that way today, but like to me with like thinking about just feminism, that's kind of what I picture because that was like the way it was presented in so many things that I saw at the time.
oh yeah. But the one thing I'll say about it is it felt natural.
Yes.
It wasn't an over the top.
Yeah, I was because I was watching I was like the way they integrate it, it just makes so much sense. It's like it's not like they're trying to make this the point of the movie.
Right.
Because, like, a lot of times, if they're doing a scene like that today, it would be more pointed. Like, you definitely know this is the point. But this, it just felt like it weaved into the story so much
It
more
did.
naturally.
And it paid itself off multiple times, whether
Yeah.
it was her, trying to save Maurice or picking up Henry to when they run into the travelers or when she defends herself against LePew. Those little moments that it's talked about and it's brought back in the times that make sense. It's well written in that respect.
Hmm. And then I also liked after this scene when you meet the new step family. Well, first of all, I love that the name of her stepmother is Baroness Rodmilla de Ghent. And I was like, that is the perfect name for a wicked stepmother.
Oh man. Rodmilla is definitely a good bad name.
It is. But Baroness on top of that, and then de Ghent as a last name. Just, it's like the perfect trio of evil stepmother names.
Oh yeah, very much.
And then when they first get there and her hand pokes out of the curtain of the carriage, I had to do a double take because it looked awful. And I realized a moment later that it was just a gray glove, but I kind of wondered if they did it that way on purpose because it was like, for a very brief moment, really disturbing.
Well, if you're talking evil stepmother and that's your first introduction to it, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially knowing the story generally.
Uh-huh. But then I love when Danielle is introduced and she's covered in mud. And I love that she says that she slaughtered Gustav, and he's like walking up slowly behind him, and he's absolutely covered and looks miserable.
And the kid playing both of them, no, the kids
Yes.
playing both of them are adorable.
Yeah, they got two great little kids.
Oh God, they were so cute. Just the most, and there's that. It's hard to get good kid actors. It just by
Yeah.
the nature of them being kids, it's hard to act. But no,
Yeah.
they were fantastic. So
Yeah, definitely. And then in the scene after that, you get the reveal of the book Utopia, which he gives to her the night before he's scheduled to leave. And I don't know exactly what Utopia is, but I know it's where the concept of a utopia originated.
yes. Let me pull it up quick. I remember hearing about it. It's like I've seen versions that talk about the like a sci-fi
Yeah.
concepts more than like the classic. All right, so Utopia is a framing narrative primarily depicting a fictional island society and its religious, social, and political customs. It's reminiscent of life in monasteries.
Well, I hadn't realized that the book dated back that far. Because, like, I guess I just was thinking it was maybe like 1800s, but I was kind of surprised that it was from the 1500s.
Yeah, 1551. And it almost like there's woodcut stuff, and it almost kind of gives the idea of Atlantis.
Mm.
I don't know if it's actually discussing Atlantis or not, but
But I liked that the book was like an actual important plot point.
yeah,
'Cause
and
it comes back later and is one of the reasons that she ends up befriending the prince.
absolutely, and it's one of the things that draws him to her.
Hmm. I also had a question about this scene. I don't know if you would even know this, but when he's telling her that he's going to be leaving, she's like trying to negotiate him down to not being gone as long as he was planning. And she does that by playing rock, paper, scissors. And I was like, is that historically accurate for the 15 or 1600s, whatever this takes place?
Yeah, looking at it, earliest form of rock paper scissors style game originates in China, in 1600 BCE. So, like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's the first mention of it. It's not specifically rock paper scissors, but it's in that realm. It originated in China.
Huh. Well, I don't think would scissors have existed back then? And if
Well,
not,
it's a
what was the
variation.
scissors?
Maybe it could have been like a knife or something. When was it 16th century was when this was set?
I was thinking 1600s, but it might have been 1500s. I don't remember because I think the grandmother, I mean, not grandmother, great granddaughter, I think she was in like the 1800s. And depending on how many greats she was, it might have been 1500s. Well, wait, when was Leonardo da Vinci? That would tell us.
Yeah, that's a fair point. When
he
did
died in 1519. So I would guess like maybe early 1500s or
okay?
late
Because
1400s.
I do know with the trivia, if I remember correctly, the overlap of the way that these work, it's not quite, not that they're really worried about accuracy. They
Oh
do
no, yeah.
overlap a little, like a couple years, but there's not enough overlap for them to have been able to correspond in the way that they do at the ages that they are. The first known mention of the game was in a book by Ming Dynasty writer who was born in 1600, who wrote that the game dated back to the Han Dynasty in 206 BCE, but the first mention of it wasn't until the 1600s. So then in France, so it looks like maybe it was like it took time to get from like in the 1600s it existed, but not in France. But the game is sometimes called Shui Fume, Shai Fume. I don't know, something like that. So it is there, but it isn't in the time. They wouldn't have played rock, paper, scissors in the 16th century.
Okay.
For whatever that's worth. Let me look up the thing about Leonardo da Vinci quick. Because there was a thing that talks specifically about although Leo da Vinci died in 1519 and Thomas More's book Utopia was first published in 1516, Drew Barrymore's character was given the book as a present when she was a child, and she meets the character of Leonardo 10 years later.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So this wasn't a true story.
I'm afraid not. I know that that's really gonna break you up inside. Yeah, there was actually like a Prince Henry, and there was obviously a Leonardo da Vinci. So there are elements of truth, but by and large, you should not take this at face value.
Okay.
I know that breaks you up inside.
I don't feel like there's a whole lot of versions of Cinderella that start out this early in the story. Like a lot of them you almost will get after she's already basically been enslaved. But I thought it was
Right.
interesting that you get kind of a good long scene with her and her father
Oh
when
yeah.
she's a kid. And then you actually have him die on screen instead of off screen.
I do wonder if they did that because of the original Grimm fairy tale focused, like talks about their life before the evil stepmother comes into it.
Did the father die in the Grimm's version? Because I've read a
No.
bunch, and he doesn't always die.
Right. No, he definitely didn't die. He just lost interest in his daughter.
Okay.
Basically, he took the side of his second wife and basically
Yeah.
said, "Well, daughter, sorry. I choose my wife over you."
Sounds like a great guy.
Oh, absolutely. And he wasn't punished either, but that's okay.
Yeah.
What do you do?
They don't actually really say, but like the scene where her father dies, I kind of get the feeling that they meant for this to be the reason that the Baroness hates her so much. Because when he dies, he says, I love you to Danielle, and he doesn't say it to his new wife.
I could see that. And you do get later on, Danielle asks her, "Did you ever love my father?" And she goes, "I barely knew him."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure it was an arranged marriage or a marriage of convenience or not
Probably
a
of
marriage of, like it
convenience,
was
probably.
they might have known each other but just it was to increase their wealth or increase their standing more than anything else, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure with that if it would have been she was old enough where she wouldn't have had an arranged marriage, would she have? It wouldn't have been something that would have come down through
No, I
the
don't think so. I think marriage of convenience is probably
yeah.
a better way to describe it because I mean, first of all, must have been married before because she's got two kids, so she wouldn't be having an arranged marriage by
Right.
parents trying to get her married off. I think it probably was just both of them needed a new partner.
They were
They
both
both
lonely
had
and
kids,
yeah.
and she probably was looking at him for wealth because he owned a big house.
Well, I mean,
So,
we've seen how she behaves with money and such, so
yeah.
she, yeah, oof,
So yeah, marriage of convenience is probably the best way to put it.
yeah, gold digger
Yeah, probably.
or Frank digger, maybe.
But then we go 10 years into the future. I think Danielle is 18 at this point.
Thereabouts, yeah.
I really like the scene where she meets the prince because, well, speaking of arranged marriages, the prince is trying to flee the castle to escape an arranged marriage to the Princess of Spain. And he ends up basically stealing her father's horse. So she starts pelting him with apples, knocks him off the horse. And then she just keeps throwing them at him, even after he's on the ground and subdued.
Yeah, and I always, that's one part that I'm never quite sure of, and maybe you know. Like, he saw her face, right? Like, he
Yes.
to not be able to point her out. And I know that, at that point, he's just like trying, he's got 10 other things on his mind, but
Yeah.
to not be able to figure out the connection. I get it, but I don't, it feels like one of those kind of like, Prince Charming not being able to pick out, Cinderella.
Yeah. And I think they're probably going for, I mean, it's not the same, but like a Superman type thing, because when he sees her again, because at this point, she's basically dressed like a servant. And she
And
like,
she's covered in mud and everything else.
yeah, and she like drops down and she's like begging his forgiveness. So he may not even get that great of a look at her face. I'm not
That's fair.
sure.
No,
But then
that's fair.
when he sees her later, she has been all dressed up because she's pretending to be a noblewoman. Because like he thinks he recognized her, but he doesn't really know why. So I think it's more a Superman type thing where
That's fair.
they look familiar, but they're dressed completely different and they're carrying themselves in a completely different manner. Enough so that if you don't absolutely know this person, you could be fooled into thinking it's somebody else.
No, that's 100% fair. That's a good point.
But like his marriage to this Spanish princess is what sets a lot of things in motion. And I liked the scene where they're talking about the prince being engaged to a Spanish pig, and her stepmother says to one of her daughters, "Nothing is final until you're dead. And even then, I'm sure God negotiates."
There are so many good one-liners in this.
Like they are such great villains. Like,
Oh, fantastic. And they're written they're quick one-liners. They don't stick around. They're there and they're gone. And
uh-huh.
Angelica Houston is just
Oh yeah.
she's so good.
Yeah. She's great. This is like the perfect character for her.
Oh yeah.
And one thing that I should mention in the previous scene, when he is leaving, he leaves a bunch of gold with Danielle as, I guess, renting her horse.
Yes.
Like when I first saw the scene, I was like, okay, is he just like buying her horse now? But then he returns it later. So I guess he's thinking of it as a rental situation. But she goes back and gives this to some other servants in the house because apparently her stepmother sold one of the women's husbands. So I was like, okay, are they not servants? Are they just straight up slaves at this point? Because, like, I mean, I don't know the laws of the 1500s France, but like, this seems illegal to just sell somebody if they're only a servant.
It might have been a case where, there's always like a black market for stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably one of those things where I shouldn't just think too hard about it.
No,
It
no, I
works
think
for the story.
yeah, it does. I would imagine it's probably a case of you probably could. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Radmilla de Ghent is not exactly a woman of upstanding values.
No.
I mean, her whole spiel is, basically selling off one of her daughters to the highest bidder when it comes to, getting her on the throne, which,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm sure back in that time and place that was, you wanted those connections. And being that she was already a baroness, she was probably used to a much higher standard of living than what she had since, Danielle's dad had died.
Yeah. It does make me wonder, though, how did Jacqueline turn out to be so nice?
You know, a broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, even for her, it takes time for her to get to that point. Because
That
I mean,
is true.
she wasn't treated all that great by her mom. I mean, she was the
Marguerite was the favorite.
oh yeah, not even a question. And that value on beauty at the cost of personality and a decent heart. It's that alone. But yeah, I think it took Jacqueline a bit to get to the point where she was willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
But she has growth too, which is nice. And she found a
Yes.
guy that made her happy.
Yes.
As a horse. Partially.
Yes. Oh, that scene cracked me up.
Oh, yeah. My assumption is that it was your right, because I'm sure that there was a lot of like, if you were going to get new servants, you were either born into it or one person said, like Danielle was sold to LePew. I'm sure there was probably a case of that probably happened pretty frequently. Like, I'm no longer happy with this servant. I'm selling them to you, get rid of them.
Probably.
And it might have been a case where, like, I don't know, because it was under the nose of the government. Like, the king was literally selling Maurice.
Well, they were talking about him being sold with criminals, so maybe she convinced somebody that he was a criminal.
That would be my guess. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
That's probably what it was, and I just didn't notice. There was probably like one line.
It might have also just been implied. Because, yeah,
Yeah,
like, you think about the UK, over the course of time, they sent a whole bunch of criminals to Australia, which is how that became populated with Australians,
yeah.
at least partially.
Plus the scene at the end when Danielle is sold, I kind of got the feeling that that was illegal because, like, she threatens him to get away. And if he had legally bought her, I think he probably could have called the police or somebody, the guards or whatever, to go get her back, but he
Right,
didn't.
right.
So I
That
think he
makes
probably
sense.
knew he was in the wrong having done that.
I mean, he's so freaking sleazy. It makes sense that everything he did would be at least a little illegal.
Yeah.
Just one more quick thing too, with the gold francs that Henry gives Danielle, it was to keep their interlude secret.
Yeah.
So it was
So it
renting the
wasn't,
horse, but also,
it was like renting her silence.
yes, there you go. Which didn't do much because he's the one that opened his big mouth.
Yeah.
That does make me wonder, like, he seems quite familiar with Rodmilla de Ghent. And obviously, I'm sure that being a part of court, you do kind of get to know them back and forth, but he seemed to be on pretty good terms. Like, not good terms as in, I'm going to marry your daughter, but like, good terms as in, oh, well, hey, how's your family? Sold any servants lately? That kind of thing. And I was remembering back to Maurice, he had a quote debt that he had to pay off before he was allowed to return. So yeah, if it was a debtor's prison thing, that would make sense.
Well, I guess also talking about the prince, we should mention that this is where he meets Leonardo da Vinci, because after he rides away on her father's horse, he comes across a carriage being robbed, and it's Leonardo da Vinci, and the Mona Lisa is stolen at this point. So he goes and rescues the painting.
The way he describes the painting too is pretty great. He refers to the Mona Lisa as laughing at him, as if she knows something I don't. And Da Vinci says, "The lady had many secrets, I merely painted one of them."
Yes, that was a good line.
Very good line. Again, Da Vinci's lines in this are fantastic.
Yeah,
In my head canon, he is Da Vinci. And Da Vinci was cheeky as all get out.
that seems about right. Well, somewhere in here, you also learn that Da Vinci is on his way to the palace because he's going to be the artist in residence.
Much better than poor Michelangelo being stuck in the Sistine Chapel. Or in the Vatican.
Yeah, he had some line about him being stuck on a ceiling somewhere.
Hmm.
And then I also loved the scene where he's basically, the jig is up. He has to return to the castle. So he goes to return the horse and he tells the Baroness about his encounter with a servant with a very good arm. And she realizes that he's talking about Danielle. And he says something like, "She is mute, my lord." And he says, "Really? She spoke quite forcefully." Well, it comes and goes.
That's pretty good.
And then I also loved when the daughters run out and she introduces them to him. And she introduces Marguerite, Francois, Louise of the House of Ghent, and Jacqueline.
Well, your oldest kid, you get all fancy with the names, and for your second born, you kind of go, just call her Jacqueline. No last name, no middle name, just Jacqueline.
You can tell who the favorite is.
No, I had no idea. I don't know what you're talking about.
And then you mentioned him being familiar. I'd forgotten that he made a remark, something about them blossoming overnight. So I guess you do kind of get the feeling that he is familiar with all of them, even though she just introduced them. Like if he says that they blossomed overnight, maybe he knew them at some point when they were much younger.
Right, right. Maybe they were. I mean, if she was in court, they might have, as kids. I suppose, like, how often does the prince get out, and do stuff?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't think it would be without severe I mean, even here, how was he allowed such freedom?
I don't know that he was exactly allowed because he escaped.
True, true.
At this point, like maybe they just allowed him to return the horse and he has to go back anyway. So
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that would be my guess is that he probably hadn't seen them in a long time, but maybe like when they were younger, they were at court and,
yeah.
they were Marguerite was being a like all temper tantrumy and such.
So then this is where Danielle goes to get Maurice back. I'm not sure, like, she goes to Gustave for this disguise, so I'm not sure where he's getting it. Like, do we know what Gustave, like, where he ended up? Like, because he's, like, training to be an artist himself, I think.
Right. They never really say, well, the one outfit in the trivia they were talking about it. I don't remember the exact event if it's when I think it was for the ball. Marguerite like picks up a dress and says, "Oh, it's too blue." And that's one of the dresses that Danielle wears to meet the prince. But this first one, I think it's just maybe one. I suppose if Gustav paints enough people, maybe someone leaves their clothes behind, or maybe he's got connections, or I don't know for sure.
You know, not sure. But yeah, he has a disguise for her so that she can go and buy Maurice back.
Well, that's right, because the shoes were too big or too small.
He says something about she could get in trouble for dressing above her station. Like, I'm not sure of the politics of the time, but I guess it is illegal for a
Yeah.
servant to pretend to be a noble person.
And at that point, I mean, in theory, by traditional definition, she would not be a servant because she is of that house. She's treated like a servant, but I'm sure that that's still, being that she's not a member of court, she's never been introduced as such, or never been introduced to court. She's probably not allowed to be there specifically for that. So,
Yeah. But then this is where the Utopia book comes back because she runs into the prince and basically gives him an impassioned speech about how society creates thieves and then punishes them for it. And they reference Thomas More in this conversation, and he's the one who wrote Utopia, which gives them a connection.
a very unique connection too, given the style of most of the ladies in court.
Yeah, I doubt there's many of them that have read Utopia.
Yeah, that's for sure. He also says at one point, and I think it's around here, where she had more passion in one statement than he had had in his whole life.
Mm, yeah. And then this is where she comes up with an alias talking about visiting her cousin. And I liked the line when she says that she's not from around there, she's visiting her cousin. He's like, who? My cousin. So then she leaves him with the name of her mother, Countess Nicole de la Craye. And I'm not sure if her mother was actually a countess, but Nicole de la Craye was her mother's name. I think she might have thrown the countess on there to give her a better sounding name, like something that would have more standing in this society.
Possibly.
But I liked the way that she phrased it because she says that she can only leave him with this name, but she doesn't say it's her name. She just says it's the only name she can leave him with.
She's a bit cheeky, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I like it when people can come up with a lie that's not a lie because they're not actually saying it, but it makes the people believe something. It's just really clever to me.
No, it absolutely is. It worked well. And just even the line about, well, who's your cousin? My cousin.
Yes. There's not really any lines in the next scene, but I just really liked the scene where she brings him back home and Maurice is reunited with his wife.
Oh yeah. And that's two characters we haven't talked about. I love the other two servant ladies.
Yes.
They're so cool. And
Yes.
it's nice that they've included them in there cuz Cinderella by herself, like if you went to the Disney, and obviously you would never have this, but if you had the Disney classic without the mice and the birds, it wouldn't be like to have her be on her own
Yeah.
would be a much more depressing story. She needs those auxiliary characters to give her the courage to go forth and do it.
Yeah. I hadn't thought of it before, but you compare them to the mice and birds, but they kind of are. They do fill that role as both companions and then at least an element of her salvation at the end. Because like in the Disney Cinderella, they have to like get the key and bring it up to save her. But in this one, they have to get Leonardo da Vinci to come and save her.
Be a man that opened a door.
Yes. I hadn't thought of them as like stand-ins for the mice characters, but in a way, they kind of are.
Yeah.
After this, we go back to the castle with the prince and his parents arguing about how he doesn't want to marry this Spanish princess. And he says something like he doesn't want to get married to a complete stranger. And he says, marriage to a complete stranger has never made anyone in this room very happy.
Was it here or was it a little later where he said he wanted to open a university?
Later.
Later, okay.
But I also liked that the king in this argument basically has no real comeback and says that if he doesn't get married, he will deny him the crown and live forever. And he's basically like, good, I don't want it. And at some point after this, the king, not that he has a change of heart, but he at least gives him a minor concession by telling him he's going to throw this ball and he can try to find somebody else to marry. But then if he doesn't, then he has to marry the Princess of Spain.
Which I really appreciate that counter argument. Like that's it's a nice, not that it would happen in that time and place, but it's a nice kind of like, okay, here are your options. You find someone you want to marry here, or you marry the lady that you don't want to marry.
Yeah. And I also liked in this whole conversation about the ball, I don't remember if it's the mother or father because I just wrote down the line, choose wisely, Henry. Divorce is only something they do in England. Then after this is where you get, I don't even know his name really, but Toby, the page, played by Toby Jones.
Yes.
This is where he delivers the news of this ball to the Baroness. I'm not sure if there's something going on between them or if she's just kind of leading him on, but he seems
Oh no, she's totally just leading him on. Like
Yeah.
the way that she, oh you naughty little boy,
Yeah,
the
yes.
whole, she's above, like she wouldn't be in the same room alone with the messenger guy, much less anything else.
Uh-huh. But then, of course, this leads to her scheming on how to get Marguerite engaged to the prince. And you also had a scene where she's mad at Danielle for not warning her about the prince, but basically says something like, the prince and Marguerite had quite the interlude because of this.
Now she also gives the page like a good chunk of their change to like get all the details too. Like who's going to be there, you know.
Oh, yeah. Because that's another thing. Like, throughout all of this, things start going missing through the house. You find out later that she's been selling it. I guess maybe that's part of what she was selling it for, was so she could buy information.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, she is laser focused on getting her daughter with the prince. That's really all she lives for.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't think that's too far outside the box for members of court, but still.
Yeah. But I also liked, at some point after this, you have Danielle talking with Paulette and Louise about all of this going on. And she basically says the prince and Marguerite deserve each other. And one of them says, nonsense. The only throne I want her sitting on is the one I have to clean.
That's a great line.
And you also get a scene where they're going through her stuff, trying to basically saying that she's not going to get married, so these clothes are going to be wasted if they don't take them. And this is, like, you probably had little hints of it before, but this is where you really start to see that Jacqueline is not okay with all the stuff that they're doing. And then Danielle catches them, and then they try and save face, like, oh, we were just getting these out for you because we planned for you to come with us, but only if you get all the chores done.
Right. We wouldn't want to use these antiques. They're 15 years out of style.
Yeah. And then I guess one of her chores is that she's supposed to go truffle hunting. That was such a strict, like, I mean, I guess that would be something that happened, but like,
It is France.
it seems so random that she'd just be out hunting truffles.
Maybe she just had a pet pig and she just wanted to take him out. No, I think that at least traditionally, I think that truffles are like I think they're hunted in France.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's an interesting inclusion in a movie like this.
Very random.
But then I also liked the scene that this goes with because in the middle of truffle hunting, she decides to go swimming and she runs into Leonardo da Vinci walking on the water in some kind of boat shoes. And I just love the scene of her looking up and screaming in terror.
Well, a girl can't swim in the water in peace.
But then this is where she meets the prince again, and this time he recognizes her, or at least recognizes her as the countess,
Yep.
not as her herself. And I guess they just end up spending the day together.
Yes.
Well, first this was another thing. I guess it's the next day that they spend together because this time he ends up asking her to come play tennis with him. And I was like, this has to be like, surely tennis is not at that old. But it is.
Really?
I was shocked.
Oh my
The
gosh.
original form of tennis was developed in the Middle Ages.
No, really.
Yeah. Because
Interesting.
when that happened, I was like, okay, this has to be like an anachronism. There's no way that they were actually playing tennis, but they were.
Oh,
So there's so
that's
many things
awesome.
in this that would like between rock, paper, scissors and now tennis. It's like I guess it does sort of make sense.
Yeah.
Might not be perfectly accurate, but
Yeah, but it's in that realm. I never thought about the rock, paper, scissors thing, but I appreciate the fact that you did because I never would have given that thought.
I don't know why I thought it. I was just for whatever reason they started doing it. I was like, would that be something that they would do? And then I'm not sure, were there other people with the prince? Because I think that night is when she learns that the kingdom is talking about this mystery woman that the prince has been taken with. Because, like, there's the whole thing, like, he had decreed that all the prisoners be released and compensated.
So what happened was the prince doesn't go to church and Danielle goes with him to a monastery to look at books and stuff.
Well, I think that's even later.
Is it?
Because I think this is the next day when, like, rumors start spreading about the prince is taken with this mystery woman.
Oh, okay. Because at the tennis match, Marguerite is there and she is holding the ball that Henry needs.
The tennis match is what happens the next day because he
Right.
was inviting her to go to the tennis match. And she's there selling things with the other servants. But Marguerite is like actually attending.
Right. And that's where is that where Henry gets a chicken in the face?
Yes. Because he's walking with Marguerite and they come up to their stand because she's like talking about, although our servants are here. And he's going to meet the servants. And then she pops up and is shocked and throws the chicken in his face to distract him while she escapes. And then Paulette and Louise are like, it was just us. There's nobody else here.
This is also where we get our first introduction to LePew as well.
Yes. Because he comes up and he wants to marry Danielle, but she's like spurting his advances. He's not a big part of the scene, but he's enough to make an impression.
Yes. And like we've said, the one thing that this movie does very well is it does pay off everything that happens.
Yeah, definitely. After the tennis day, it's like the stepmother is trying to give Danielle some sort of a pathetic little pep talk, talking about her mother. And she says, we must never feel bad for ourselves, must we? No matter how bad things get, they can always get worse.
I mean, not wrong, but not exactly the pep talk that you want to hear when you're a servant for your very rude mother-in-law or mother,
Yeah.
stepmother.
And this scene is also where, like, you almost get, like, the tiniest shred of humanity in the stepmother. She's like looking at Danielle sadly, and she says something like, she has so much of her father in her. She can almost see him looking out through her eyes. And Danielle's just like, really? And then it's like she realizes that she's being nice, and she says, yes, well, your features are so masculine. And then this is where you'd have the line that you mentioned earlier. Did you love my father? And she says, well, I barely knew him. Now go away. And then I think it's the next day you have Danielle with Gustave talking about what things will be like if Marguerite marries the prince. And she's pretending not to care, but he knows that she does. And then the prince comes by looking for Leonardo da Vinci because he sees some sort of a kite contraption thing that he'd made.
Oh yeah, that's right. She's hiding behind the haystack.
Yes. And Gustave tells him that he'd loaned it to Countess Nicole de la Craye. So now he wants to find her instead. And he says that she's staying with her cousin, the Baroness Rudmilla de Ghent, and she's there now, alone. He's like pointedly saying she's there alone. So when he runs off to find her, she comes out, Gustav, you horrible little snipe. Now he's headed towards my house. Then I suggest you run.
But I tell you, the turnaround job too of the other two servants to get
Yes, I love that scene.
oh, it's fantastic.
Because he gets there and meets her at the door and she's all dressed up. But then I love the way the camera pans, like it's behind her and the camera like moves around the corner and just shows Paulette and Louis like collapsed on the stairs, fanning themselves, surrounded by all the clothes that she had to shed as they had to hurriedly get her into this dress.
And you think about it, at that point in time, that would have been a lot of clothes.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's an obvious point, but still.
But just the way they shot that, I just love the camera behind her and then moving to reveal them collapsed on the stairs.
Absolutely. And I gotta tell you, Danielle must be able to run like the wind, because to beat the prince on a horse.
Yeah. But then this is where you have the library scene, because he says he's going to a monastery and he knows that she likes reading and they have a library. And then she says, you found my weakness, but I have yet to learn yours. And he says, I should think it was quite obvious. And he's like looking at her pointedly.
And every teenage girl went, oh.
And then this is where you have the scene with the Baroness at church, wondering about the prince and meeting the page. And he says that he's brought something to brighten her day. And we don't see what it is, but she looks very pleased and pats his cheek and says, oh, you vicious, vicious man. And then we later learn that it was the Queen's necklace, which he stole so that Marguerite could return it to ingratiate herself to the Queen. And it works because they're invited, I guess, to tea the next day.
You know what else is great about that necklace? It does make an appearance later on in the movie as well.
In which scene?
The very end, when the stepsisters and Rodmilla come to the palace and they're in their finest and she appears behind them.
Oh, okay.
That's the necklace that was stolen or lost or whatever.
Okay, I didn't notice that. That's a good catch.
Thank you. Occasionally I do have those.
So they go home and Jacqueline is then instructed to help Marguerite. And she's not really happy about this, of course. They basically tell her that Marguerite is doing this for all of them. But she knows that she's soon going to be cleaning alongside Danielle.
Basically, yeah.
And then this is where I think you start learning about all the things that are missing, and the Baroness tells Paulette and Louise that everything is coming out of their pay. So then they're at the library, and Danielle is telling the prince about her father and his love for books, and he's completely taken by her. They probably spend most of the day there before heading home. But then on the way home, they end up getting lost, and she has to climb up a tree to try and find their way back. And at that point, they're set on by the same gang that had robbed Da Vinci. And she had taken off her dress so that she could get up the tree. And one of them says, my wife thanks you for this fine garment, mademoiselle. You will give me back my dress, sir. And then she almost gets the best of this guy, but they take her from behind, and he's demanding that they let her go and take him instead. And they agree to this, so they let her go, and she demands a horse since they're taking her escort. And he says, my lady, you may have anything you can carry. So she carries the prince, which is such a good scene. I love that scene so much.
It's so fun.
And then, of course, they love this as well. So they decide to invite them to come back with them, and they'll give them a horse. So then they basically have just a big campfire party in the woods. They basically spend probably most of the night there, and this is where they have their first kiss.
And it makes you go, aww.
So they go home, and he asks to meet her the next day. and she says that she'll try. And he says he'll wait for her all day. But her family is furious that she's been gone. She's now sleeping in, and they're demanding that she get up and make them breakfast. And she tells them, "You have 2 hands, do it yourself." And then they, of course, turn this on Jacqueline and they tell her to go do it. So her suspicions were correct.
Yep. One step above Danielle.
Yeah. And then you have the scene where they're actually taking her clothes. They tell her that she's not going to the ball. Marguerite is going to be wearing her clothes. And she says that they were her mother's. And she says, yes, and she's dead. And it's like the most satisfying punch to the face in movie history.
Is that before or after they go on the chase around the house?
The punch comes first, and then it's the chase through the whole place.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
such a great scene. I love that whole scene. It's so great.
It is. You know what? The only thing that's missing from that is a Benny Hill soundtrack. Can you imagine that whole scene with Benny Hill?
I feel like that's probably an old YouTube video.
Probably.
That seems like something that would be on old YouTube. But as much as I love that scene, I don't love the way it ends, because it ends with
it's so
Marguerite
sad.
throwing her book in the fire and taking her shoes.
Well, she gives her a choice of either giving Marguerite the shoes or saving her father's book.
Yes, and she doesn't get either.
Nope.
And then the next day, I don't know if it's the next day, but the next scene is Jacqueline tending to her wounds, so they whipped her until she's bloody.
Yeah.
But then I do love the next scene because they still have to go to tea with the queen, and Marguerite has a black eye. And I loved that her excuse was she saved a baby from a runaway horse. It's like the dumbest lie.
Well, you know, when you are the queen, you are quite sheltered, I would imagine.
And then I think this is where the Baroness starts putting some pieces together, because the queen is talking about the prince has been missing. He went missing the whole day yesterday. And then she realizes, oh, Danielle was missing the whole day yesterday. And then the queen is wondering about this Countess de la Craye, and she recognizes that name. So she's basically figured out that the prince has a thing for Danielle.
And Danielle has a thing for the prince.
Marguerite, through this whole conversation, is completely oblivious. Like she's really dumb.
Oh, she is, very much.
The Baroness basically confirms, oh yes, Countess de la Craye, she's staying with us. And she's like trying to get Marguerite to confirm this. And you can tell Marguerite, the wheels are not turning in Marguerite's head at all. And she's like, oh yes, our cousin. And then suddenly it hits her, and she throws a tantrum just out of the blue.
That's what she does best.
And then she comes back and composes herself and says, "There was a bee."
That is a good line. Just the way that she delivers it is freaking amazing.
Oh yes, she's a great villain too.
Oh God, yeah, she's fantastic.
A completely different kind of villain to her mother, but a great villain nonetheless.
Very much. She walks that line between ditzy and just malicious.
Yes, perfectly walks the line.
Mm-hmm. The scene with Danielle meeting Henry to kind of tell him the truth is kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. He talked about wanting to start a university. So he tells her that he has found his purpose. He's been inspired by her. And she knows that this can't go anywhere. But he tries to kiss her and touches her back, and she cries out in pain and runs off.
Yeah.
And then her stepmother is furious about this whole thing. She knows what's going on, but she also says that the dress and shoes have disappeared, and she thinks that she stole them back. Looking back now, I don't think that she thinks that she stole them back. I think this is her alibi, because I think this is another thing that she has sold, and now she's just pretending that, oh, you stole them back.
See, and I assumed that the other servants hid them.
Oh, that also could be a possibility.
Because
that would be my hope, actually, because then they're
Yeah.
not gone for good.
I'm pretty sure because they show back up, like they bring them out when Da Vinci gets.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. But then I like the line after she accuses her of stealing them back. She says, "Where are the tapestries and candlesticks? I would rather die 1,000 deaths than see my mother's gown on that spoiled, selfish cow." And then she throws her in the cellar. So at some point, they end up going back to the palace, talking with the queen, telling her that the countess is on her way home. She was catching a boat to go home because she is betrothed to a Belgian.
Oh no, not a Belgian. And Henry does not take it well.
Yeah, he quote unquote realizes that the reason she was so upset the other day was because she was trying to say goodbye and he wouldn't listen. But meanwhile, Maurice goes off to find Gustave to tell him what happened to get a message to Da Vinci. And then this is where you get basically the most iconic scene, at least in my memory.
Oh yeah.
As the page has a bathroom emergency outside a wall and Gustave drops the pot on his head. So basically, he just steals his clothes and then sneaks inside the castle to find Da Vinci. And then I like the scene where he actually finds him and he faints.
Monsieur Da Vinci. Oh, yes. And he's talking to the wrong person.
Yes. That's a great scene. And then this party is a masquerade ball, and Marguerite is dressed as a peacock, and Jacqueline is a horse, and she's not happy about it. And she says, "Why don't I just pull the carriage while I'm at it? If you think it will get us there any faster." But then, of course, I love later when she finds another horse and falls in love with the other horse.
Absolutely.
And then this is where you get the scene of the rescue. Brilliant. That was pure genius.
Oh,
Yes,
it was
down
excellent.
in history as the man who opened a door.
I mean, he was a smart cookie on both big and little things. So,
Yes. And then another great line when he's trying to convince her to go to the ball, otherwise the Baroness will win. And she says, "A bird may love a fish, but where will they live? Then I shall have to make you wings."
that is a great line. And even the way that Drew Barrymore like says the line,
Mm-hmm.
it works so well.
Yeah. There's so many lines like those where it's like people talk about like, "Oh, I don't like her accent," but like she delivers these lines so well. I don't care.
Right.
I love her.
There's a level of conviction.
Yes. And by this point, the prince thinks that she's gone. He thinks she's off marrying a Belgian.
As you do.
So he has resigned himself to be wed to the Princess of Spain. And the king is going to make his announcement, but she shows up just in time, and the prince stops him and he runs to meet her. And he says, "My mother said you were getting married. She was misinformed. I was about to make the worst mistake of my life." And the king is looking at them. "Who's she?" And the queen says, "My guess would be the Countess de la Craye." The who? The king is not in the loop at all.
No, that's not surprising. I mean, when is any father figure ever in the loop?
Yeah. But then, of course, the stepmother is not going to stand for this. She runs up and rips off one of her wings and tells the prince that she's been lying to him this whole time. And she confirms that Nicole de la Craye is her mother and she is a servant. And he storms out furious. And then, of course, you get the iconic Cinderella scene of her running out, tripping outside the castle, leaving behind a shoe. But it's Da Vinci, not the prince, that finds the shoe.
There's also where he starts sketching the picture that makes an appearance at the beginning.
Yes. I wrote down the name of that because in the context of this movie, it's supposed to be Cinderella, but the actual title of the picture is The Lady with Disheveled Hair.
You know, it fits.
It does. It just made me laugh that ostensibly this painting of Cinderella is the lady with disheveled hair. So then Da Vinci goes to confront the prince. And I really liked the scene where he's telling him off. He basically tells the prince that she had come to tell him the truth. And he basically is not backing down. And Da Vinci just says, "Then you don't deserve her," and leaves.
Da Vinci was a smart man.
And then you have the scene when Danielle gets home and the next morning she's just acting like nothing has happened and her stepmother is gloating, And she says that she has it on good authority that the prince was about to announce his intention to marry Marguerite.
To be
She's
that
she's
delusional, can you
delusional.
imagine? Yeah, I
Yes.
know. It blows my mind.
Yeah. Like even if the princess, the Spanish princess was not in the picture, even if this was not a thing that was going to happen, even if it was true, like obviously it's true that Danielle is not a countess, she is a servant. Even if all of that was true, just the fact that she attacked her, ripped her dress, and told him the way that she did, that on its own is enough to disqualify Marguerite. And the
You
fact
would
that she
think.
still thinks that it's a possibility, even though she did all of that, she is delusional.
Oh, completely so. But that, I mean, that is everything that that those two have worked towards.
Hmm.
It's like someone that doesn't get a lot of love, like when you have a crush. This is their combined crush. And anything that could possibly, denote that, even if it's just like a polite gesture, they're going to take as, "Oh, we're getting married."
Yeah. And this whole conversation basically culminates into Danielle asking if she's ever loved her. She's done everything she's ever asked. And she says, "Was there ever a time, the smallest moment, when you ever loved me at all?" And she says, "How could anyone love a pebble in their shoe?" Which is such a great evil line.
Oh, it's fantastic. And it's so like it's not just saying no or, some kind of variation where it's like a big thing. It's like she's a little thing that's a constant annoyance.
Hmm. And then at that point, Paulette appears and tells them that everything that had gone missing was back. And it's the sleazy merchant, Pierre Lepew, from earlier, the guy that
That's a
was hitting
great
on
name, by the
Danielle.
way.
I was
It's
wondering if he was based on Pepe Le Pew.
I think
Like,
so.
did somebody watch Looney Tunes and was like, "I like the name of that skunk. I'm going to name a villain after him." And then, of course, her stepmother reveals that she's selling her or exchanging her for all of their stuff because she had been selling all of these things to him gradually, blaming it on the servants. And now they're getting it back in exchange for Danielle.
How long do you think that was in the pipeline? Or was it something where, like, with everything that happened the night before, she just said, okay, done?
I don't know. I kind of doubt that it was always her intention to sell her. Because, like I said before, I feel like she maybe in deep, deep way down, squashed deep down inside her, she still held a tiny shred of humanity. Because she almost had that moment where it felt like maybe she broke a little, like looking at her and saying that she reminds her of her father.
Right,
So I feel like she didn't always intend to sell her, but then after this, she was like, "I don't want her around anymore. She's
right.
got to go." And after this, I don't really know how much time has passed. Like, there's a scene transition as she's dragged away screaming to Da Vinci painting her. And I'm assuming that it's not the same day. Like, I feel like more time has passed than we really know because the next scene after Da Vinci working on the picture is the wedding of the prince to the princess of Spain.
I would assume at least a couple of weeks, just given, unless the princess was close by, or, you still have to travel and,
Yeah.
make plans and all that stuff.
Because, like, they were announcing, or supposed to be announcing the wedding at the party. That obviously that didn't happen. So they would still have to, like, announce it, and then they would have to, like, put it all together.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing that it probably was at least a few weeks that Danielle was living with him.
yeah,
But then as soon as this wedding started happening, this is one of those times where I'm like, "Oh, I definitely remember this." Because for whatever reason, the way the princess is crying, like I felt like her sobs were iconic.
they were. I think when she starts to like kneel down on the kneeler, she's like, she almost squeaks. I love the squeak.
Yes.
And it's a short one, it's a little longer, and then it's just full on like hysterical sob.
Uh-huh. And you can tell by the way she's looking at another person. There's somebody there that she actually loves. And then you have the prince telling her he knows exactly how she feels, and then he lets her go so that she can marry this other person. And then, of course, you also have Marguerite and the Baroness super excited about this because they now think that he's coming for them. They're delusional.
Oh yeah, very Delulu.
So, and he leaves, doesn't pay them any attention. And outside, he finds Maurice and Jacqueline, and they tell him that she had been sold and where he can find her. And you also notice that Jacqueline is with that guy also that was dressed like a horse.
Yes.
I think he was one of the prince's servants.
Yeah, I think you're right. Or he was like a not his butler, but kind of that role, like his confidant or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. But they have something going on too. So Jacqueline is going to get a happy ending also.
Absolutely, she deserves it.
Yes. So he tells his servant to come with him and tells Jacqueline and Maurice to tell no one that they had spoken. And then we go to Pierre's place, and Danielle's chained up to keep her from running away again.
Yep.
So, again, another clue that this has been a while. And then you have the really gross scene where he's like trying to lick her face.
I think he's actually trying to French kiss her.
Oh, I guess that makes more sense.
I mean, they are in France, so for French kisses.
It seemed like a lick to the face either way. It
Oh
was
no,
it was
no,
disgusting.
I agree. He was trying to get all up in her business and trying to play tonsil hockey before tonsil hockey was a thing. But I'm pretty sure he was going in for a French kiss.
But then, of course, this leads to her grabbing a dagger and slashing his face, and then grabbing a sword and threatening to slit him from navel to nose if he doesn't let her go.
Great scene, absolutely fantastic scene.
Yes, another totally iconic scene. Like for every scene that I had forgotten about, this is one of the ones that you don't forget this scene. This is an
No.
amazing scene. I love that she rescued herself because like the prince is coming for her, but like she's leaving the castle. She rescued herself before she gets to the prince. Another instance of like 90s feminism. She didn't need rescuing.
Right.
She needed the prince for his love, not his rescuing.
Right. She wanted him because she wanted him, not because of the rest.
Yes. And again, I love that they didn't like beat you over the head with this message. It's part of the story and it makes perfect sense for the story that they're telling. It's so
Absolutely.
well integrated.
It is. And it takes a level of control to
Yeah.
do that and to let the story do its thing. I
Yeah.
will also add, I love the moment when she leaves the castle, sees Henry approaching, and she kind of like gets all nervous and kind of shy. She kind of pushes her hair back over her shoulder or over her ear, and is kind of like not diminutive, but kind of like oh, dang it, we gotta
Yeah.
have this conversation.
But I also love like he's begging her forgiveness, but then he calls her Danielle and she asks him to say it again and he thinks that she means to repeat that he's sorry, but she really just wanted to hear him say her name.
Oh yeah,
Because for this whole movie he's been calling her by her mother's name, but now he knows her actual name.
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And it is such a sweet moment.
Yeah. And then of course the shoe, he's looking for the owner of this shoe and she tells him it belongs to a peasant and he says he knows and then he kneels and declares his love and asks her to marry him.
And all the teenage girls in the audience went, "Aw!"
And then back home, Marguerite and her mother are grilling Jacqueline over what happened. Someone had apparently told them that they'd seen her talking to the prince and they want to know what happened. And she's pretending not to remember. But she thinks it was something like, serves me right for choosing a foreigner over your sister. And they fully believe her. They're truly delusional.
But again, it's a case of truth from a certain point of view. Because
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't even think of that. And then they're interrupted by somebody at the door. It's his servant saying the king is demanding their presence and that they arrive in style. And they're super excited and rush away to get ready. And Jacqueline smiles shyly at the servant.
yeah, they're cute. They're so cute.
Yes. So they go to the queen. They enter the throne room, and the king asks if they had lied to the queen. Choose your words wisely, madame, for they may be your last.
And the smile just leaves their faces. Like the
Yes.
music is happy and royal, and then they arrive, and it's just like a 10-ton stone drops.
Uh-huh. And then she's trying to explain it away, saying, well, I might have gotten a bit carried away, but a mother would do anything for her daughter. Except she immediately turns on her and tries to throw her under the bus and play this off as if she were the only, it was only her mother that was lying. And of course, this descends into an argument between them. And the king is like pounding his staff, telling them to be silent. And he says to Jacqueline, are they always like this? Worse, Your Majesty. And then he says, Baroness de Ghent, you are hereby stripped of your title, and you and your horrible daughter are to be shipped to the Americas on the first available boat, unless by some miracle someone here will speak for you. And then they're like backing away slowly, looking around. There seem to be quite a few people out of town.
And it does speak to, I don't know if you could say it one of two ways. Either the finickiness of the people in the court that won't stand up for them despite knowing them, or maybe because they know them, they won't stand up for them.
But then someone says that they will speak for her, and then everyone bows, and Marguerite looks shocked. Danielle is behind them, wearing a crown, and the prince says, Marguerite, I don't believe you've met my wife. So apparently they got married off screen.
Yes. And she got a dye job too, because her hair was a lot more kind of like reddish than it had been.
How much time had passed at this point?
I don't think, well,
Like, was this
I can't think that much.
because like you go straight from the scene of the proposal to them grilling Jacqueline over what happened, and then somebody's at the door telling them they need to go to the castle.
I would assume like a couple of days, maybe 2 days or something. It can't have been.
I guess I just assumed that it was the same day because that Marguerite and her mother are grilling Jacqueline over what had happened, but maybe it was a case of they heard a rumor a couple days later
That's my
about.
assumption.
Okay, because I just assumed it was the same day, and I guess it doesn't have to be the same day.
Right. It could have been the next day though too, so it could have been like a 24-hour cycle or something.
That's true, and I guess like they have no idea about the wedding, so they must have kept the wedding quiet.
Right.
They must have been like basically eloping
To
because
some
nobody
extent.
knows about it.
Yeah.
I guess I don't need this explained, but
But it's still nice to
it just
know. I
suddenly
mean,
dawned on me like, oh yeah, I guess might be a time discrepancy. I don't know. It doesn't
and
matter.
movie time is movie time, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So is this the scene where you said that she's wearing the necklace that I didn't notice?
Yes.
Okay,
And it matches her whole ensemble. It's a lot of oranges and reds.
okay.
Because they're all decked out in oranges and reds as well.
hmm But I also love the line that she gives her. She says, I want you to know that after this moment, I will forget you and never think of you again. But you, I am quite certain, will think about me every single day for the rest of your life. And then she says, and how long might that be?
Yeah, the punishment is fitting.
Yes, another great line. All I ask, Your Majesty, is that you show her the same courtesy that she has bestowed upon me. And then we see that they have been demoted to servants in the castle.
Not just servants, but like I don't know that they're either like washmaids or but they're also like there's dye involved too. So I don't know
Like
if it's like
when I first saw the scene, I assumed that they were doing laundry, but then they end up falling. Well, they start arguing, and this old lady tells them they're getting on her nerves, and she like wallops them into a vat of purple dye.
it could have been everything. Well, I suppose in that case then it was probably like fabric, like they're making outfits for the people or whatever. But it could have been laundry, like just clothing services probably.
Yeah, something like that. Doesn't really matter. They're all purpose servants, probably. And then we're back with the royal family as Leonardo gives them a late wedding gift, and it's the portrait. I
Yep.
must say, Leonardo, for a man of your talents, it doesn't look a thing like her. And then, like, this is the only part where I feel like they're a bit too cheesy and on the nose because her line to him is, "You, sir, are supposed to be charming," like Prince
Da da
Charming,
da da da
wink,
da.
wink, nudge, nudge. And he says, "And we, princess, are supposed to live happily ever after." And she says who? I don't know. And then we get more voiceover with the woman from the beginning revealing that this was her great great grandmother's story, talking about she now has the portrait hung up at the university.
And the end line is something to the extent of the point is that they lived.
Yes, she says something about by then the truth of their romance has been reduced to a simple fairy tale, and while they did live happily ever after, the point, gentlemen, is that they lived.
Yes. I love that.
Yes, that is a good closing line to a movie.
Because a lot of times it's left at, happily ever after, and there's nothing else said.
Hmm.
No, it's such a good movie.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the ratings and stuff on Wikipedia for this. I know it has a 7.1 on IMDb out of 10, which that is solid for a movie that's, what would it be? 27 years old, give or take. It had 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars. It says a lot about the quality, like we talked about, the quality of the filming. It's period drama enough to kind of take you out of a modern context, but there's enough modern stuff to keep you interested.
And I love the fact that it's a fairy tale that feels like the fairy tale that it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
but it does it without magic and makes it make sense.
Yeah.
Like even though you could argue that the historical inaccuracies don't make sense, but I don't care.
Well, but that's anything of that era, and especially, and I'm not making excuses for the time and place, but for the time and place, the importance of those specific things, it wasn't as much talked about or expected as it is today.
Yeah. Because, like, other than us looking up things, who else is going to know or care about the time discrepancy between when Utopia was written and Leonardo da Vinci died?
Right, no, absolutely. And the thing is it's not like they pulled, Aristotle and put him in this. Um,
No, it roughly makes sense for the time
Yeah,
that
he
it's
was
set.
of that era. And, even though, I mean, I would say if there's anything that's kind of shifty about it, the painting of, quote, Danielle that Da Vinci did is being that it does exist in the real world and it's not some other random piece. You could say, well, you're kind of screwing with that. But by and large, I mean, that's such a small detail in the grand scheme. The
Hmm.
painting itself did not play a huge role. So
No,
I don't have an issue looking at that and putting it aside as something that would turn you off to the movie.
no. Like anything that I'm talking about of like it not making sense due to historical inaccuracies, I don't mean it in that way.
Oh
I mean
no.
it just like those are things that people could nitpick about,
And they
but
will,
the
because
general,
people will people, but
yeah, the general idea of the movie, the way they wove together historical fiction, like obviously this is not
yeah.
actual history, the way they wove that together with a fairy tale and stayed true to the fairy tale enough that it is completely recognizable as the story of Cinderella. Because like I have seen some versions of different things where they take the magic out and try and do their own story with it, and it's almost unrecognizable as the story they started with. But this is still the story of Cinderella.
Right.
Like everything that you expect to be in a Cinderella story is in Ever After. And
Yeah.
they've done it so well. Like for some of the things that I've done for every version ever, if I get to enough of them, I put together like a ranking. And I don't know if I will ever get to the point with Cinderella that I will want to do that because there's like so many Cinderellas.
Right.
It would be almost impossible to rank them all. But if I ever did, I'm fairly certain this would be at the top of the list.
I would agree.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be back to talk more fairy tales in the future.
Absolutely.
I have a feeling that the next ones that we talk about will not be as good as this one.
Define good.
I have some in mind that I want to talk about, but not because I like them, but more because I saw who they were made by and I was like, I need to watch this train wreck.
Well, I will be there for a train wreck.
It'll be a great conversation for entirely different reasons than this one.
Absolutely. And historic relevance will not be the most weird thing that you run across, I'm sure.
No, probably not. Okay. Until then, do you want to let people know where they can find you and if they want more from you?
Certainly. You can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater. I do a wide array of random, obscure, and straight up bad movies. Presently, I am kind of going back and forth between riffing of short form content with my fellow collaborators or just regular reviews of various random, obscure, or straight up bad movies. So stop by and say hello.
Okay. Well, we'll see you later for more fairy tales.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.